Okay, we're back, and we're going to take on the next question here, which is the practice modified FRQ number 2. And the question reads, assume the economy of Anderson Land is in a long-run equilibrium with full employment. In the short run, nominal wages are fixed, so that'll be an important consideration in a little while. So the first part of the question reads, assume that there is an increase in exports from Anderson Land. Explain the effect of higher exports on the following in the short run. So the first thing they ask is what's the effect on real GDP? So you have to recall that GDP can be affected by any of the four components. That would be consumption, investment, government spending, or net exports. Net exports being the difference between exports and imports. So if exports increase, that would therefore increase net exports, and that would therefore increase real GDP. So that's the first part of the question. There will be an increase in real GDP, again, due to an increase in net exports. It also asks what the effect then would be on the price level. So if there's an increase in GDP, we can treat that as synonymous with an increase in aggregate demand or a rightward shift in aggregate demand. So again, even though you're not required to graph, this might be a good time to draw a aggregate demand, aggregate supply graph with a rightward shift of aggregate demand, and you'll see then that that yields a new equilibrium with a higher price level as well. So you're going to have not only an increase in real GDP, but you're also going to have an increase in the price level as well. Part B of the question then says, based on the answer from Part A, the increase in real GDP and the increased price level, what is the impact of higher exports on real wages in the short run, and explain. So as they said in the intro to the question, nominal wages are fixed. So that means that the amount of money people are bringing home in their paychecks doesn't change. However, if the price level changes, if there's inflation or deflation, that would then affect the real income. In other words, what people could actually buy with those dollars that they earn. So if there is, as we said before, from Part A, an increase in the price level, that would essentially mean that the real income will decrease because people will therefore be able to afford less with the same income. So there will be a decrease in real income, again, due to a higher overall price level. The third and final part of the question reads, as a result of the increase in exports, export-oriented industries in Anderson Land increase expenditures on new container ships and equipment. What component of aggregate demand will change? So since we're talking about industries, that of course equates to an increase in investment spending. So that would be the answer to CI. There would be an increase in investment spending. And then the final part of the question says, what is the impact on the long run aggregate supply, and explain. So remember what investment spending is. In this case, it's increased spending on container ships and equipment, but generally speaking, it's an increase in what they call the capital stock. That's the phrase that you want to use in answering this question. And if you have more capital stock, in other words, if you have more machinery, if you have more equipment, then eventually your long-run productive capacity would also increase. So therefore, your LaRosse would also shift to the right. So again, what is the impact on long-run aggregate supply? The answer is the long-run aggregate supply will increase. Again, the two words you want to use here are increased capital stock. That's three words actually, but the capital stock part is the key there. Okay, so that's the second modified FRQ. Again, notice we didn't really have to do any graphing other than the allusion there to an aggregate demand, aggregate supply model, which again, most of you could probably intuit. If you increase aggregate demand, you're going to have a higher overall price level. And that's it. Okay, we'll get back to the next question, practice question 3 and practice question 4 tomorrow. Alrighty, take care guys.